Hey, this is Telly with VRFanService. Just driving around and thought I'd talk about VR for a second. What are my thoughts on VR? Well, I think it is a new medium, and in a new medium, there are a lot of possibilities to take and risks to take, and without taking those risks, it gets stagnant. I pride myself on the work that we did as VR fan service for Just VR, Google VR, Sex Like Real, Real Jam, because I think a lot of our work spoke to the creative nature of the people in our crew and the people we worked with. We kind of took the approach that we're not just making porn, but we're trying to make something akin to art, or at least find the art in porn. And if you go by the notion that all work is creative when done by a thinking mind, then even porn too can be art. So when crafting scenes, that was kind of a guiding light for us. And with that guiding light, yeah, it's kind of tough. It's kind of scary because if you look at it from what is sold today, it's all very boring, in my opinion. It's safe. And the reason it's safe is because you have companies that are either just starting out or they've been established, and their revenue streams are severely diminished. This isn't just in VR, this is in 2D porn as well, where people have become conditioned to believe that the consumption of free porn is almost a right, in that they have the right never to give you money. And maybe it's not malicious, maybe it's also by privacy and protection, because we've all heard horror stories of people giving their credit card information to nefarious websites, and they got scammed. The money went out the bank. So the idea of giving your credit card to a porn company puts a lot of people off. It makes them hesitant, gives them pause, for good reason, because there are a lot of scams out there on the internet. There are a lot of scams out there in this world. And I think we have entered a society where people look at other people like food. But I digress. Get back to VR. So if I wanted to talk about art, I guess we'll talk about one of the most popular scenes that VR fan service has shot. Maybe one of the most best-selling adult VR scenes ever sold. Melody Mark's Making It Up to You. So let's see here. When was that shot? I think it was like in 2000. Memory's fuzzy. I'm just riffing off the cuff as I drive, because I got a long drive. But yeah, we were asked to work with Melody Marks, and with that, I wanted to try something interesting. So the story and premise was drawn a little bit from a previous scene I did for Just VR with Amelia Onyx, called the Onyx Spa. I thought that the colors were really nice. I thought the oils were really nice. I thought that vibe was very sensual, and trying to elevate that in this scene would be really fun. But I also wanted to make it more narrative, and I had kind of a rule where I wanted to take the viewer on at least 3 location changes within a scene. And the reason I did that is because it goes back to like that old pickup artist mentality, where if you're trying to build connection and rapport with somebody who you just met, by changing the location multiple times on a date or something, makes that person feel as if you guys have hung out forever, because it's not just in one place. We're not just at the coffee shop sitting at this one table, but now we're at the bookstore. Now we're at the restaurant, and all of these places could just be 3 stops down from each other. So by doing that, my hypothesis was I could create a deeper connection with the VR viewer. So that's kind of what we did. In the beginning of the scene, you start out in the garage where you meet Melody and she's late on the rent. Then now, as a viewer, it is presumed that while you were in your car, you went to a massage spa, you see the receptionist, and the receptionist is doing the intake form, and the colors in the lighting are different from the place you were before, and it'll be different from the place you are in the next space. So all of these were done to chunk out pieces of time in the viewer's memory so that we could kind of lull them more into a sense of like reality. We want them to forget that they put on a headset and that they are here to watch a porn scene, which is something I don't think a lot of productions do anymore, probably just because of time constraints or money constraints. It's usually all just from that fixed position and that one room, and you never leave that room. And that makes sense if you're producing a commodity, but if you're trying to produce art, then you kind of should think about those other things. So by having Amelia Onyx in that scene as an intake person, I thought that would be a nice throwback to the work that we did previously together at Just VR. I like to pay homages to influences of the people that I've worked with or source material that I enjoy. They're sort of like little Easter eggs. Side note, one of the reasons I think Amelia Onyx is such a great VR performer is because she performs well with her eyes. She has very big eyes. She's very hypnotic with them. And I think that's a quality that a lot of VR performers forget, is that most of our work, I like to call it, is close-up magic, in that this person is presumed to be standing directly in front of you. So if they're standing directly in front of you, what are you normally looking at? The eyes. And those eyes have to send signals and messages to the viewer that aren't typically perceived. So if a talent is thinking of her lines, or if a talent is not present in that moment, it shows through in the eyes, which is why in other scenes that we do, we like to base the content of that scene around the talent and their persona. We would either do research prior to on the talent and what type of content they like. We would try to reach out and what type of personality, or if we have to run and gun it, then that day of, I'm trying to get a feel for their personality before we go into the shoot. I try to stay away from really strict lines, although there are some times where I want specific things said in certain ways, just to keep either the narrative going, put an Easter egg in, or send a certain message. So back to the eyes. So yeah, Amelia Onyx, great eyes for VR. Also, fantastic performer to work with. We tried to integrate her into everything we could, which is why she was actually our first intimacy coordinator. The idea was spurned based off of her as a VR director coming in. Never directed porn, never really wanted to direct porn. I knew there were a lot of knowledge gaps that I did not possess, and I knew that there were things a talent could see that myself, as someone who's inexperienced and also a dude, could not see. So by having an experienced talent there, my hope was that they'd be able to point out situations or issues that I am either not aware of or privy to or perceptive of, so that we could address them prior to them becoming problems. And I think she did a great job with that. She was also very nurturing, which helped talent feel comfortable. And that kind of got the beginning of the intimacy coordinator program that we had at VRFanService started. All right, so now after the intake session, you go up into the room, and in the room, again, the lights are different, colored lights, and Melody has the mask on. Of course, you know who it is, but I felt by keeping the mask on creates a costume change. She is clothed, protected, and by the end of it, she will be naked and vulnerable. And I liked that contrast. So it starts out with a lot of talking because I wanted to help the viewer build rapport with the talent. That's why we did a lot of close-up magic, a lot of talking work, so you could get to know this person and build rapport and connection with them. Once we get into all the stuff, we had our shot list, our positions that we wanted to work with. But a lot of it is just having the right talent in the right space at the right time. And that was melody. It's all melody. It's all Jerry Kovac. Great talent. We had a great performance chemistry together. I tried to do some multicam stuff as that was something I did earlier on. I wasn't sure if that would enhance or detract from it, but I think I was still playing around with that technique to see if it was necessary. And I do have a lot of like BTS footage of that sort of content. But at that time, I was also using a laser because we were having issues getting the camera centered. And it's a common issue with a lot of other crews. And my notion was that, well, if I could develop something that could put a crosshair up and down, then at least I know it just runs straight up and down between the talent, between both eyes. So I could use that to cant the yaw angle of the camera to make sure that I'm squared up and centered. Lighting solutions, that's also a fun thing. So I came into this with no filmmaking background. A lot of our lighting solutions during the early work at Groovy VR and Just VR were PVC piping with clamps and different types of tube lighting. I was a big fan of Quasar Science tubes. They had some really nice small 2-footers that were cool and cost effective. I liked them because they could also fit into tight spaces. So I think on the Making It Up to You scene, we used Quasar tubes set up in a 4-tube arrangement so that we could make something similar to like panel lights, and then we put gels over them so we can get our colors. I think I did have some longer tube lights. I can't remember, but yeah, it was that was kind of our deal there. Let's see here. We shot on a massage table. Fucking furniture. That's a good thing to talk about. So some fucking furniture is better than other fucking furniture. Massage tables are great because you can adjust your heights. You can also allow the talent to spread out more. Male talent doesn't have to lay on the floor, which I'm sure they appreciate. And yeah, it's a more comfortable experience. But how often can a massage table pop up on set in your scene? Would you have a massage table at a coffee shop? Probably not. So fucking furniture is something that not really talked about, but extremely important to, one, comfort, safety, but also to heights and adjustments for talent so that they can focus on the work. I think at that time we were also using the walker that Tommy Gunn had turned us on to. So during one of my first scenes, we worked with Tommy Gunn, and he showed up with a walker. And when I saw him walking in the door with that, kind of almost had a heart attack. One, I was like, holy shit, what happened to you? But then two, it's just like, oh, what's going to happen to the scene? But it turns out that he had discovered this fantastic apparatus for ensuring his back doesn't blow out, because in POV content, if your male talent is doing standing sex, oftentimes we'll be trying to put the camera where their head would be. But in the earlier camera days, like the K2 and the K1, there's a lot of cords and cables sticking out back, so we'd have to ask the male talent to lean back even further so we can get a visible chest. And in doing so, they're basically bending backwards and unsupported. That's hard on the lower back, it's hard on the legs, it's an uncomfortable position. So Tommy Gunn, when doing some thrift shopping, saw this walker and thought to himself, hey, that's a great idea. And from then, walkers were on almost every VR set for years. They probably still are. I know I still have mine in storage. So yeah, thank you to Tommy Gunn for making that happen. He saved the backs of a lot of male talent. I think that chalks up a lot of that scene. Basically, good chemistry, good talent, good location that had multiple sets that we could work with to create that kind of environment. The storyboards were done by my wife. One thing I do want to touch on, soundscaping. So again, we're trying to simulate reality. And when discussing virtual reality with people, they often just get lost in the visual pixels, because when you think of virtual reality, you think of a headset. So it presumes that your eyesight is the most important part of the experience. But I don't find that to be true. I believe that good audio is better than good video if you had to make a sacrificial call. Because even if you have like the best quality camera with the best visual clarity, if your sound feels mono, or if it's not edited right, or if there's something off, or if there's a hiss, it'll take you out of the entire scene. It'll destroy immersion. Another point too is it's not just about the audio of the talent, the ability to hear them clearly, because sometimes you don't want to hear them clearly. If someone is up close and whispering at you, you want to struggle to hear that sound. Whereas if someone is standing in front of you and talking, they're projecting at you, so it should be a comfortable level. And sometimes when people dump audio into Premiere or Adobe Audition, they'll hit normalize and then just try and make everything as even. And that works for interviews, but if you're trying to develop a soundscape, it doesn't really work that well. So audio engineering is important. That was something very hard to try and pick up and learn, because there's a lot to audio, especially when you're on set and you're working with these DIY lighting configurations and you have your microphone so close to your lights. You get a lot of feedback, and we had all sorts of electricals and cords running out of cameras that would sometimes pick up odd noises. Cell phones would disrupt that. So I'm trying to be conscious of that while monitoring, while also trying to set up the camera, while making sure the talent's doing the thing. Felt like a lot of juggling, and my wife and I did the best we could. And at that time, it was just her, Amelia Onyx as the intimacy coordinator, and myself. Maybe I would have some helpful hand, but most of the time they were just handing out snacks and stuff. So yeah, we did a lot, and it was kind of wild to think how much we took on ourselves. And I think, that also gets stressful too, because you're trying to do all these people's jobs in an industry that typically has declining revenues. At that time, it was great. It was kind of beginning, but nowadays, a lot of budgets are getting slashed because no one's paying for this stuff. And if they are paying for it, they're paying a platform who's now charging less and less and less, which means less money gets spread out to producers, which makes it harder for them to recoup costs. It makes it harder for them to produce new stuff. And it makes them more risk adverse, because now they want to make the thing that appeals to as many people as possible. And that's how we end up with just vanilla content. Um, anyways, audio is important. Soundscaping. So in this scene, I wanted to make the massage room feel as real as possible, in that I think I added water elements in the post-production, so it sounded like it was coming from somewhere to your side. But I also took audio from the fucking portion and put it into the beginning of your time with melody, so that it kind of like feels as if there are people having sex in the other room. And I think that was also important to the story, because then it signals to you that this is a thing that happens in this place, and it makes it feel like you're almost expecting and anticipating this thing to happen. And that can build tension within the viewer. So that adds another layer of intimacy and immersion, if that makes any sense. So yeah, soundscaping was important. Melly's just a great actress too. So having good talent who are comfortable in the role they're being asked to play, and given clear, defined instructions as to what the deliverables are, allows them to hit their marks, allows them to give the director exactly what they need to sell this experience. And when that all comes together, it's just great collaboration. It's great for everybody. So I think if I'm speaking to directors, whether current or future, giving your talent as much information as possible as to what they are asked to do, and also giving them the freedom to be themselves allows for a much more natural sort of experience, because that talent will put their own ingredients into the pot. And when they're bringing good ingredients and y'all cook, and it's a delicious experience. So yeah, there's that. All right. I think this was pretty good. Maybe I'll do more for other scenes and just keep them coming. I'll probably put like BTS photos over this thing because I'm doing it while I drive, and yeah, I do a lot of driving, so why not, right? Okay, cool. Yeah, be well. Peace.